In this video, I'm going to show you two examples on how to use solving square roots and solving quadratics with application problems. And so the first question here says that the area of a circle is 182 yards squared. And so I have the formula for the area of a circle, which is from the center of the circle to the outside called the radius, and you take that squared times pi, and that gets you your area. So we know the area is 182 yards squared. And then it says use 3.14 for the pi symbol, and what we're going to do is solve for the radius. So what is the radius? We're going to round to the nearest tenth. So if 182 is our area, I'm going to sub that in for the A of our formula because that stands for area. And then I'm going to use 3.14 and then I'm going to solve for my radius. So I'm going to grab my calculator real quick here. And the first thing I'm going to do is solve for the r by isolating the r squared. So I need to divide by 3.14 on both sides. And this is what I'm going to need my calculator for. So 182 divided by 3.14 is going to get me 57.96, and I'm going to round this. I'm going to go to 3 decimals here. The 7 will round that up to a 2, and that's my radius squared, because when I round to the 10th, I want to be pretty accurate. And now I'm going to square root my answer to get rid of that square. And so I'm going to take the square root, and you can actually hit second and your negative sign, because up here it says ANS, which means answer. And this will be not rounded like I had put here, but anyway, 7.61. Nearest tenth is going to be actually tens, hundredths, just one decimal place. And that's my radius. Now when you apply the square root, you apply plus minus, but for a radius of an actual circle, we want the positive only. A negative radius isn't going to make sense here, so I'm only going to use my positive 7.6 answer. Now over here it says the dimension, find the dimension of a rectangle whose area is 266 centimeters, that should be a square, and the width is 5 centimeters longer than its length. Okay, rectangle. I'm going to draw a picture here. So here's, width is longer than the length. So here's my width and here's my length because the width is longer. Now I don't know what the length is, so I'm going to call it X. And the width is 5 centimeters longer than that. 5 centimeters longer, so like if this was 5, this was 10. If this was 10, this was 15. So we want to add 5 here. And I know the general area, they said for my rectangle, is 266 centimeters squared. So if area of a rectangle is equal to length times width, I'm going to substitute in the 266 for the area. My length I'm going to substitute in X, and my width I'm going to substitute X plus 5. Okay, so now what we want to do to solve a quadratic, you cannot have something set equal to 266. Here when we were simplifying for our square root, what I needed to do is solve for r squared, and I could isolate that r squared. But here, I can't just set these two factors equal to 66. That's not really how it's going to work. And so for a quadratic, when you're solving 266, I noticed that I have x squared plus 5x, and I'm not going to be able to solve like I was over here by just isolating the r squared term because I have a linear term here. So I'm actually going to move the 266 over, 266, and if I have 0 equals x squared plus 5x minus 266, I'm going to solve this way. And I'm going to use the quadratic formula, because 266 looks like a big number and it looks a little bit hard to factor. So x equals negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So what I'm going to do is take opposite of my b, so negative 5 plus and minus the square root of, now b squared minus 4ac, this will be 25 because 5 times 5 minus 4 times my a of 1 times my c of negative 266. All right, so I'm going to grab my calculator here. 25 minus 4 times my a of 1 times my c. So notice how I am using parentheses here, negative 266. Underneath that radical sign is 1,089. Well, I'm kind of glad I didn't factor because I don't even know if that's a perfect square. Let's see here. And then 2a, double my 1. 2 times 1 is just 2. Now I want to get the decimal for this. Square root of 1,089. What? I'm surprised. I obviously don't know my 33s squared. Okay, so I have one answer for when I add and one answer for when I subtract. So here we go. -5 plus 33. Hit enter. Now divide by 2. I have 14. And -5 minus 33. Hit enter. Then divide by 2. I get -19. Now, if I'm solving for the dimensions of the rectangle, a negative dimension doesn't make sense. So I'm going to use 14. So my length, GTH, my length was x, which was 14, and my width, which was x plus 5, is going to be 14 plus 5, which is going to be positive 19. And that is our answer right here. Length and width.